Good morning. I've been asked a question, and it's one of the questions that I've probably answered 1,000 times over the course of my career. It's one of the questions that actually started this whole journey for me wanting to understand the paranormal and then discovering the difference between the paranormal and the supernatural. Because I used to get asked this question so many times on my old blog at debbiedekiwi.com. And the question is, why is it sometimes when I'm getting ready for bed, going to bed or asleep, I feel a presence in the room? Sometimes I'll wake up and I'll feel someone standing beside my bed or in the room, and it can be quite terrifying. And because there was never any answers out there that felt right for me, I decided to do my own exploration and, do research. So I would ask everyone who asked me this question, like a list of questions, and figure it all out. And then I came to a conclusion that I was happy with. And this is the answer that I give to you, that I now give to everybody, and I've been giving to everybody for years, and why people need to re-examine the world of the paranormal, because it is so misunderstood and so misinterpreted that people are confusing the supernatural with the paranormal, and fundamentally there is a huge difference. Like the difference between a monkey and a whale, like that kind of difference. Both mammals, as in both in the realms of the unknown, but two completely different life forms. So this is my answer. The reason why you feel someone in your room when you're getting ready for bed or you are asleep is because as you're getting ready to shut down so that your body can go into regeneration mode so that you can restore energy, because your brain is more active at night than it is during the day, but it's more active when you're asleep than it is when it's awake. That requires a lot of energy for your body, like battery. So you need to recharge your battery. So in order for your brain to recharge its battery, you need to go into shutdown mode. Okay? Now the thing is, because we are basically animals, and we have to be aware of our surroundings for predators, because it's an evolutionary thing to always be on the lookout for predators and threats. We have to go into like a hyper-aware mode. Like, you know how cats and dogs can wake up like at the turn of a dime? The second they hear something, they can be like dead to the world. And then the second they hear something, they're up and at that window. Okay, it's like a primary instinct to need to keep guard of your surroundings in order to protect yourself while you're sleeping from threats and predators. So what happens is, as your body is preparing to go into shutdown mode, your conscious self is pulled forward to get ready to go on sentry duty. Because in conscious form we have no physical form and we are an endless supply of energy, we don't need to, have bodies in that in order to be able to do what we need to do in the cosmos, so to speak. So we can be omnipresent anywhere we want in the creation frequency if you know how to tune yourself into that frequency, which is what I did. And being in the creation frequency means having the ability to split the neuro pathways of your brain into fractals so that you can separate time into categories and then traverse that timeline anytime you want once the frequency is tuned in like a radio. Okay? So then what happens is, as you're starting to go to sleep, your conscious self gets called forth to go on sentry duty. But sometimes as well, if when you're asleep, you've had to go off and deal with a child in the next life you're going to have, or you've had to go and be with a loved one in the last life you've had, or you need to sit with your child self with a trauma that happened when you were 7, because time exists simultaneously in the creation frequency. You can be all and every in the creation frequency. You can dictate and decide which frequency you go to once you're able to tune into that frequency, because once you tune in, that's the station set, okay? And you can go there anytime you want. Which is why when we die, we're never parted from our loved ones. We just see them in the creation frequency. We just don't need to be in the physical to do it. So sometimes when your higher self or your conscious self, your spirit, your soul, whatever you want to call it, is going off and doing other things that are more important at this time, your ancestors can also step forward, and so can people like your children. If you're a parent, sometimes you may wake up and swear to God you saw your child standing by the bed, and then you'll go to look, you'll wake up saying, "What is it, Bubba?" sort of thing, and they're not there. They can be standing in to play the role of your guardian of your physical body, while you've had to go off and do something that has required more energy for you to do than stand sentry duty. So, because you're talking about your conscious self, nobody knows you better than you, so you start to feel your energy before you see it, because you know what you feel like. But because you're in the realms of reality, your subconscious mind kicks in, which is the voice of logic, doubt, and reason, and it will start to override your intuition and say things like, "There's someone in the room. Who is it?" Then your hair will stand up on end because it creates static electricity, okay? And that's a build-up of energy, which means you're about to see something. You're about to see something and you're terrified, so your hair stands up on end. Because we are magnetic and we have a biomagnetic force field around us, the second any interference comes into that frequency, it creates static electricity within the ion particles in the atoms in the air, and it reacts to your body by your hair standing up on end, to let you know that something's around. But your subconscious mind has overridden your conscious mind, and it begins to put you in a state of panic or fear, because you're then going into that predator-prey mode. It's instinctual. It goes back to our evolutionary growth to be aware of something that is unknown. You can feel it, but you can't see it. Therefore, you have to get yourself ready to be protective and defensive of it, fight or flight. Your subconscious mind is then kicked in and overridden. Your instinct has kicked in and overridden your intuition, because there is a difference between instinct and intuition. Instinct is primal. It is embedded in our very cells to function on instinct because it keeps us alive. And your intuition is growing over time. You have to tune your intuition in once you break out of puberty. When you're a child, because you're in the creation frequency 24/7, your intuition is higher than your instinct, which is why children will always go off with predators, because they're so trusting. Their instinct has given, like, their intuition is stronger than their instinct, and so they will go off with the wrong people and end up getting hurt. But once the chemical components in their brains change and puberty occurs and they go into the cocoon phase, which is I call the teenage years, and come out the butterfly at the other end, which is, like an adult basically. Once puberty's over and done with, they're considered an adult. they then run on instinct instead of intuition, because they're now living in a world where they have to look out for themselves, because their parents have had to step back and let them grow up, sort of thing. So then instinct takes over and overrides intuition. Do you understand? So then the fear kicks in and you start to panic, and it makes you hyper alert and hyper vigilant, and then you become too scared to go to sleep because you don't know what it is. You can't see what it is. You just know there's something there. You just don't understand it. That's the paranormal and the supernatural. That's the problem that people have. It's their inability to understand it properly that makes them feel what they don't understand, because it's instinctual to feel what you don't understand. It's instinctual to feel what you can't see. And I'm trying to bring this out of people and educate them so they're not afraid of it and they understand the beauty of the supernatural, so that they can tune down the paranormal instinct in them to then embrace who and what it is that they are in the supernatural world that we live in, because the supernatural world is more prevalent than the paranormal one, because the paranormal one is solely based on what it is we create with the power and strength of our mind. And the lower the frequency of the brain waves that we send out, the more negative the paranormal activity will be. So what happens is, when we start to become aware that there's something in our surroundings that makes us too scared to go to sleep, and then we start overthinking things, and it makes you paranoid, and it makes you, anxiety ridden, and it makes you fearful, and it makes you too scared to go to sleep, and then you might want to start taking things to help you sleep because you can't shut your brain down, and then that's when it's turned paranormal. That's when you will start manifesting paranormal activity in the house. So it'll start with you feeling someone in your room, and then after a few days, it'll be that you hear footsteps in the hallway, or you might hear your name being called, or you'll hear a whisper in your ear, and then you automatically think, I knew there was something in this room. I knew this house was haunted. I knew there was something bad here, because now you're on alert. Your instincts have kicked in. You're hypervigilant. You're overthinking things, and you're not realizing that through building up all that generation, all that energy within your brain engine, you have now put out a frequency that clashes with your intuition, that then becomes paranormal. It's like the equal and opposite frequency clashing. Like, when you put two magnets together the wrong way, and instead of pulling together, they push apart. That's what happens. We are supposed to be living on a supernatural frequency, but because our subconscious mind becomes overactive when logic, doubt, and reason step in, if you don't know how to balance those three states of subconscious being, it can create paranormal activity. And of course, the scareder you get, the more anxious you get, the more paranoid you get, the more energy, low frequency negative energy you are creating with your brain, with your mind, and it then becomes kinetic and gets sent out as like mind bullets, and will because energy has to travel, energy has to go somewhere, so it will hit objects and create sound and create like matter, and things like in the form of like footsteps. Like you might hear something running across your roof. That's a really common one. Hearing things running in the attic. Okay, if you're laying down in bed and you're looking up at the ceiling trying to figure things out, the energy's going to go straight to the attic, and so you'll hear hear things running around in the attic. Or you might hear your name being called because you've become paranoid. So you're creating your name being called because you're paranoid and thinking that someone is watching you. Do you see what I mean? You manifest what you create, and when it gets to like the underworld stage, when you are so paranoid and deep in the subconscious mind that it becomes negative and you get the growling voices and that's when you resort to things like having a couple of drinks of alcohol before bed, or needing to take prescription medication to try and shut the voices down. And it is absolutely not necessary at all, at all. And I've spent many years teaching people how to deal with this sort of stuff. It's so easy to deal with. I got rid of my paranoia within 2.5 days, and I got rid of my anxiety like within a couple of days. Paranoia, it might have been 2 weeks, sorry, and the anxiety was a couple of days. And all you need to do when you are having like an anxiety attack, or you're having paranoia, is you need to stop what you're doing. Like, immediately stop thinking what you're thinking, stop what you're doing, and make your brain focus on a tangible thing. So what I tell people to do is I get them to stop and I get them to count their fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then look at the lines on your fingers. And, maybe count the lines on your fingers. Or, look at something on the wall and count the lines, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And by doing that, by distracting your subconscious mind with a physical thought, with a physical activity, it shuts the paranoia off and it shuts the anxiety down, because your brain is now focusing on something more important than consuming itself with negative thinking. And it overrides the need to analyze everything, because it's now doing something it deems more important, which is counting your fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you keep doing that every time you get paranoid or have anxiety, after a few days, I promise it stops, because it like recalibrates your frequency. Now, the other thing is that, and this happens a lot with children, it happens a lot with children, and this is the biggest problem that I have with the way parents and therapists in schools treat children, which is why I'm so determined to educate children and help them understand who and what it is that they are as children, and why I wrote The Porcelain Rabbit, is because there are a lot of cases where it's been reported that children have woken up and seen a monster, something scary by their bed. Or you will wake up, like there's thousands of reports out there of people waking up to something trying to choke them, something sitting on their chest, screaming at them and terrifying the crap out of them. And then they think that they're either possessed or haunted, or that there's something evil in the room. And it's not the case at all. And I always say to people that when that happens, you need to thank your higher self. You need to thank whoever it was that stepped in to do what they did, because they saved your life. By them doing what they did, by them scaring the crap out of you, they saved your life. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when we sleep, our souls leave our body, right? Our energy source leaves our body, which is why our conscious self steps in to do sentry duty, to make sure that we're not susceptible to attack from, people that want to wish you ill will and things like that. And if it's not you, like I said, it's going to be an ancestor or a loved one. But when we sleep, we step outside of ourselves. I always say that it's the little man that lives inside our gut, where our intuition lives, clocks off to go home for the night. So then he goes home to have his tea and, be with his wife and kids and stuff like that. And while he's clocked off, and you've gone into shutdown mode so that you can regenerate energy, so that your brain has power to function the next day, because we are vulnerable to attack, if at any point anything comes within our energy field, even if it's in our dreamscape, that is a threat to us, we are immediately sent an alert, And the man that lives in our gut, or your conscious self, your spirit, your higher self, will immediately then trigger an alert to wake you up. And it will do whatever it has to do and do whatever is necessary to wake you up, because it means that either something has come into your energy field that is a danger or a threat, or it means that you have started to wake up. Your conscious mind, or your subconscious mind, sorry, has started to wake up before your physical body has, and it causes sleep paralysis, which means that there can be a docking issue when your soul is getting ready to come back into your body. There can be a docking issue because there's like a glitch between your subconscious, your physical, and your conscious states of being. And so your conscious mind will trigger the alarm to do whatever is necessary to wake you up at that point in order to save your life. Because if you have a docking issue, if you have that sleep paralysis where you can't move physically but your subconscious mind is perfectly awake, your conscious mind hasn't had enough time to dock back into your body. So it will trigger a fear response in order to wake you up, to force the slamming of your conscious mind into the tiers of physical and conscious states, into the tiers of your physical and conscious state, in order to wake you up, which is why once you have the sleep paralysis, you might wake up with a fright or a start, but like you'll be like, whoa, sort of thing like that. That's your conscious mind slamming back into your body to give it the fright that it needed to force all three states of being back into each other, But it is also why when you have sleep paralysis, you will swear there is someone in the room with you. You can't physically move. You try to move and scream to wake yourself up, but you can't. But you're perfectly aware of what's going on and you can feel someone around you. That's your conscious mind on sentry duty. When it gets scary, when it becomes terrifying and you'll get the growling or you'll start to see something scary, that's because your conscious mind has been triggered to respond in order to wake you up, to protect you or save your life. It will take on the form of your worst nightmare or the scariest thing it can think of in order to force you to wake up. And that's what sleep paralysis is. That's why we have sleep paralysis. The opposite of that is sleepwalking. Your physical body will be awake and you'll be in the creation frequency, living what it is that you're seeing in the creation frequency, but your subconscious mind isn't awake. And they will be living in what it is that they're seeing while they're dreaming, because they're in the creation frequency, and dreams are either a form of psychoanalysis or time travel. But their subconscious mind isn't awake, so they're not aware of their surroundings. So I personally believe that sudden infant death syndrome is because there has been a docking issue where the soul hasn't been able to properly align back into the physical and subconscious states of being, and therefore the life slips away. And also you have sudden adult death syndrome, SIDS and SADS, cot death, basically. That's what I believe cot death is when the conscious mind hasn't been able to realign properly when it's come into dock in order to wake up the body in the conscious state of mind. So that's what happens. When that happens, I say to the parents to teach the children to say thank you to whatever it was that scared them, because it literally saved their life. It's like a defibrillator. They give you the shock of your life. It is literally the shock of your life because it's the shock for your life. That's why you shouldn't be afraid of these things, and this is why I'm trying to teach people. Because there's psychics and mediums and paranormal investigators out there feeding people this fear, and it's perpetuating a negative cycle that is causing a lot of psychological trauma for children, and for the parents, and creating unnecessary drama, and creating jobs that don't need to exist, like child therapists, for example. You know, they need to go in and try and analyse why these kids are seeing these scary things, not considering for 1 minute that it could be a supernatural event. Do you know what I mean? Or because it's deemed paranormal, it's deemed possessions and things like that, and people just have completely misunderstood and misinterpreted the difference between the paranormal and the supernatural because it makes so much money for people. Clairvoyants and mediums and these investigators and these TV shows and that, it makes them a lot of money. It gets them a lot of fame and recognition and that, and they are literally damaging people's lives. They are feeding people fear, and they are creating the trauma and the drama that is happening around innocent people's lives. And these people trust them with the information because they think, oh, you know, they can talk to the dead and blah, blah, blah. They know what they're doing. They've got machines that go beep, boop, boop, boop. They know what they're doing. So they're handing the most vulnerable they're handing the most vulnerable part of them over to these people in the most trusting way, not realizing these are the very people that are feeding them the problem that has now become a threat to their psychological, mental, physical well-being. And that's what I'm trying to educate people on. This is what I'm trying to stop. And this is why I won't work with just anyone, and why I had to get rid of my old empire. I can't work with people who are taking money off the trusting community in the name of being an intuitive or a clairvoyant or a sensitive or a medium or whatever, telling them that they are getting messages from their loved ones when it's a lie, telling them that they are haunted or have attachments when it's a lie, telling them that they've got negative energy in their house when it's a bloody lie. And it makes me angry because these people trust them, and they are taking money and accolades for selling people lies, because we can't contact our dead. We are our dead. It doesn't work like that. And that's why I say that's the difference between a medium and a median. I'm a median, not a medium. A medium is the go-between, right? But a medium ensures that you have to keep coming back. You have to keep giving them money. You have to keep giving them your trust. They are the go-between between you and the paranormal world, whereas a medium bridges the gap. I build the stepping stones for you to climb so that you can have your own connection to the frequency. So then you don't need psychics and mediums. And again, I need to point out, this is not me saying that all psychics and mediums are bad people. It's just that they need to understand what it is they're doing and who it is they're connecting to. It's the reason why a medium or a psychic will only give you a little snippet of information, like, I'm getting the name M, I'm seeing an elderly woman around you and her name starts with M. Whereas with me, I'm just like, you know, if you see, when I'm in the frequency, like when I'm doing the calls for people and that, it's a clear conversation where I'm talking on their behalf, and it is a clear conversation. It's not snippets of, I can see flowers, I can smell apple pie. Did someone in the house like apple pie? Like, that's medium, because they get a snippet. Like, it's like I always say, a medium is like they're on a trampoline, jumping up, looking into a hole in the roof to tell you, imagine there's a hole right there. A medium will jump on a trampoline and pop their head up and look through the hole and tell you what they see at the top, whereas a median just puts a ladder up, climbs to the top, sits half in, half out, reaches down, pulls their hand out to say, come and join me. See? So, thank you for asking that question. I didn't. It's probably one I should have put up a long time ago. I know it was in my old channel, but back then, I hadn't completed quantum magnetics, so I didn't fully understand it myself. Well, it's not that I didn't fully understand it. I didn't understand how it worked in conjunction with biomagnetics and the creation frequency, because back then I didn't know what the creation frequency was. It's not until I had my ascension that I started to understand. So I should probably put a lot more of these questions up. And I want to say as well, if there's anyone else out there that does have any questions, whether it's paranormal, supernatural, to do with mental health or your diet or anything like that, I am here. The door to the Alchemist Cavern is always open. So just fire me off an email, or if you know me personally, my WhatsApp. Because what I did was I got a lot of my friends to ask their friends if they had any questions, and then their friends came back at me with these questions that I'm now posting. So if you know anyone, or if you have any questions about anything, you know where I am. I love doing what I do. I love answering these questions. I love talking about what it is that I know. And when it comes to the paranormal and the supernatural, I mean, that's my bag, baby. I'm an occult scientist. It's a turn on for me to be able to teach what I know about the difference between the paranormal and the supernatural. And again, like I said, The Porcelain Rabbit was written to help children understand it on a level that they could understand. It's a book sort of written for kids aged between about 2 and 100. So, yeah, so thank you for asking your question, Poppet, and please keep them coming. And I hope that helped. And if you need me to elaborate on anything, please feel free to ask. And I'm always here for you. The Alchemist Cavern's door is always open, and so is your friendly neighbourhood wick woman, your divine feminine, your high priestess and gatekeeper, your seventh element. I'm all of the above. And I hope you have a beautiful day, although I know you're probably still asleep and won't see this until you wake up. And take care, and blessings and love. Mwah.